warm bed when I'm chilled at night, only to wake up in the morning to the snap of cold on my face, waiting for the sun to rise and setting my chair up in direct sun and letting it warm my bones. I like being alone. I like my own company. I like to write and I like to cook. I like exploring just the little pieces of nature that surround me in my camp. And I like exploration. I like to go down roads that turn and I don't know where they're going to go. What's around that next bend? I like testing my driving skills in the Prius to see if I can get down that rutted road. Although sometimes I do back up. And I like sharing my camp with friends. I used to say, and I still say, I like camping alone with those that also like camping alone. I have wonderful memories of boondocking. When I first entered this lifestyle, I explored the national parks, and between the Grand Tetons and the Yellowstone is a little space called the John D. Rockefeller Parkway. And that was my first experience of successfully boondocking. There's a river that runs there, and every night after I explored the various national parks there, I would come back to my boondocking spot and spend the night with my beaver friend. The beaver, when I first got there, was afraid of me and would slap the water. But after a while, got used to me and knew I wasn't a threat, and we shared the space together. I love this place in Washington State near Gorst in Fish and Wildlife, where my first evening there I heard bear. It was huffing and puffing. I imagined it was a sow with cubs. I stayed in my car. Also in Washington State, one of my great memories is waking up just as the sky was getting tinged with light in the morning and hearing the rumble of elk hooves. I was parked near a spring, and they would come there in the morning and drink, and a couple times they got spooked. And when they would run right past my car, and it was that rumble of the earth that I could feel. Wonderful boondocking memory. And then sunsets on the Gulf of Mexico that rival the sunsets here in the Southwest, and the clouds with their full of danger and power of the storms that would come in there. These are the things that I love about boondocking. So what makes a good boondocker? I think there's 3 attributes that I would, if you don't have them already, I would encourage you to learn them and hone them in yourself. One is you have to be a researcher. You have to be able to go online and look and find out where the boondocking places are. Thankfully, we have some great tools that we'll talk about that has done much of that work for you. You also have to get up the courage and maybe talk to a few people and ask them their favorite boondocking places. Maybe they'll share them with you. I think you also have to have an explorer's heart to find out what's around that next bend, to be able to look in Google Maps or Google Earth and hone down to where you can see the trails in the satellite view and follow them and say to yourself, I'm going to take that road and see where it leads. Also, another really important piece of being a successful boondocker is being one who honors the land. We are here on this earth and we're in nature. And to me, it's really important to leave that for the next beings that are going to come into that same space that I've just left. Those beings may be a seedling that pops up, or it may be a mouse that runs through, or it may be another fellow human. Leave it so that there is no evidence of your impact there. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritties here. What is boondocking? To me, and this is a very kind of broad, general definition, is it is camping in nature without any amenities. So no food, no water, no electricity, no porta potties, nothing. It is primarily on public land. Boondocking goes by a couple of terms. Sometimes it's called dry camping, and sometimes it's called dispersed camping. And that last term I want you to remember, because when you talk to those managers of public lands, they typically call it dispersed camping. Although they may translate it in their head when you say boondocking, they are really thinking dispersed camping, and that's how it's referred to in their literature and on their websites. And in other countries, I have a friend that's in New Zealand now, they call it freedom camping there. So it goes by many names. When you boondock, there's different kinds of boondocking because we're all different. We all think different things are important. So you could tell from what I shared with you earlier, for me, quietness, darkness, being alone is all very important to me. However, maybe that's not important to you. What could be important to you, and I'm going to just read off some attributes that you, if you have paper and pencil, you might want to write down. So, is a cell signal important to you? Is having privacy, nobody else around, important to you? Is accessibility important to you? It has to be for your rig. So if you have a wide RV, can you get down that small path? If you have a low slung car like my Prius, can you get over those ruts? Can you get through that sand? Can you get through the mud? So accessibility. Is it close to town? So do you have a black tank that needs to be dumped? Do you need to get groceries, water, food? Those kinds of things. I already talked about being dark, quiet. Is it free? There are some places that it's basically raw land, but it is not free. So for me, it's really important that it be free. And is it within comfortable weather at the time that you're going to be there? So primarily nomads are snowbirds. So we're here in the desert Southwest in the winter where it's warmer, and then we go up in elevation and to the north in the summer. So is this particular location going to have the kind of weather that's going to be comfortable for you? So think about those different attributes and what's important to you when you do your research on a piece of land that you want to boondock on. Tick it off. See, yes, this has different cell signal, this has accessibility, this has perhaps room for my 5 different friends that are going to also come with me. Go ahead and tick off what's important to you. And one of the important things to tick off is, am I there legally? Am I following the rules of the managers of that particular public land? So I'm going to tell you where I start when I think about that particular criteria. When I'm looking at National Forest land or BLM land, I start with the baseline that I can be there for 14 days, and then I have to leave. And then when I leave, I must travel at least 25 miles as the crow flies to my next spot. So that's my baseline. From there, I do lots of research. And we have caravans in Homes on Wheels Alliance. And because we're a nonprofit, we need to really be really careful about where we put groups. And so I have done lots of research and found out there's lots of, exceptions to that general 14-day, 25-mile rule. So for example, I did some research because actually one of the participants in the caravan contacted me and said, I don't think we should be here. And that's because I put them in the same national forest, even though they were like 50 miles away from the previous location, but they were in the same national forest. And he found out that for that national forest, you could only be there for 14 days. And we're talking about probably 150 miles long national forest. So you could only be in this national forest 14 days, then you had to leave for 14 days, and then you could come back. but you couldn't stay in that same national forest. So now I know not to put any caravans there for 14 days, one right after another. The other exceptions I've found is that sometimes you can only be someplace for 7 days, and that's typically in popular spots where they want to provide access to that particular spot for more people. And if they allowed 14 days, then that less people could be there for the season. Let's see. So how do you find out these rules? Now, we're having our researcher hat on here. You heard me say I looked on the website, and that's probably my go-to. But to be honest with you, the BLM websites and the National Forest websites are not very easy to find out their information. Probably the easiest place to find information is to go to or call the ranger office that manages that particular land. And I've have gotten into the habit of when I see a ranger station, you know, because they're usually on a highway that you're driving down, I will just stop and I'll just talk to the ranger and say, you know, I'm here dispersed camping, use that word, dispersed camping, and can you give me some good places? And this is what's important to me. I need a cell signal right now because I have a meeting for HAWA. Is there any place that you know of? And, you know, I have had extraordinary luck just chit-chatting with the ranger on the other side of the desk. And so that is probably the easiest way to find information. The other resource that you can use is what's called a motor vehicle usage map from those same ranger district offices. And in this map, it will show you the whole area that they cover, and they will mark where the dispersed campsites are, where it's legal for you to go. So that's for the National Forest. If you're using some other public land, and I'm most familiar with Washington State because that's where my previous residence was, on Fish and Wildlife land, they have what they call blue dot roads. And those are the roads that you can go down. And you can camp within 100 feet of any blue dot road. So you need to find out the agency that manages that land and what their particular rules are. We are mostly going to be on BLM land, and we're mostly going to be on National Forest land. Usually those are 14 days, 25 miles, with many exceptions. Okay. So resources. I'm going to tell you the main sources I use for both myself personally as well as to find places for the caravans for Homes on Wheels Alliance. And I've already talked about the rangers and the motor vehicle usage maps, or MVUMs is the acronym for that. My go-to site is freecampsites.net. And it's freecampsites.net. And the reason I like that is that the focus is on free, although they do have sites there that cost $12 or less. But the free sites are have green icons on them, and the $12, the ones that charge are red icons. And the ones that require some sort of permit or pass, like a Discover Pass in Washington State, have blue icons. And the other reason I like freecampsites.net is that it has actual reviews by people who have been there. So you can see if something has changed. So something, as I talked to you about my work last night for a case study, you'll see that I found some things that changed. And freecampsites.net, because it's real-time reviews, will have that kind of information on there. The other website I use quite a bit, especially for Homes on Wheels Alliance, is a website that I use my laptop to get it to, and it is called publiclands.org, publiclands.org, and it covers the western states. and it will tell me what public agency manages the land that I'm looking at. There is another phone app that I use that's called US Public Lands that is kind of a quick and dirty, but does not give the fine information that the website publiclands.org gives. For instance, land in Ehrenberg that we used to camp at that we were sure was BLM land, and if you looked at the app, it showed BLM land. But when I looked at publiclands.org, I could see that much of that land is Arizona State Trust land. And I would not have known that had I not gone to that better website. And because of the nonprofit, I have got to make sure that we're following the rules and that we're on the public land that I think that we're on in order to follow those rules. And then the other really indispensable tool that I use is Google Maps or Google Earth. I will almost know a piece of land that I want to go to for the first time intimately because I've looked at that from a satellite view very, very carefully. And that's important, as Bob, if you were here for the announcements, you heard Bob say that once you get off the path, do not depend on the navigation mode of Google Maps. Do not listen to that lady tell you where to make the turn once you get off the path, because she may take you down a path that will get you stuck. And we have